Today on Treasure Hunting America, we'll meet treasure hunting legend Bob Lavoy, whose discoveries are in museums all around the Northeast, including the Smithsonian.
I was the first in 1960 to recover ships from 1758 scuba diving in Lake George. And when metal detectors came out in the 70s, I was ready. I've recovered 500 rings, thousands of coins. I think I'm on top of the world. It doesn't get better than this.
And we'll also visit with Heath, a treasure hunter who's hooked on Civil War relics from Virginia.
I've always been fascinated with the Civil War and the Civil War period. In school, I wouldn't do my homework, but I do an extra credit report on the Civil War to bring my grades up. What we find, it can prove troop movements, troop locations, what units were there. You can prove historical fact or disprove it.
All coming up on Treasure Hunting America. Hello and welcome to another episode of Treasure Hunting America. I'm your host, Mark Hendricks. For the next half hour, we'll have some amazing stories of everyday treasure hunters across the country. Bob Lavoy started treasure hunting as a teenager by scuba diving in Lake George, New York. While searching the bottom of the lake, he was the first to discover artifacts from the French and Indian War.
I got started in metal detecting really back in 1960 when I discovered history. I was the first in 1960 to recover ships from 1758 scuba diving in Lake George. I didn't even have a boat, but I scuba dived. I had an underwater trail I followed. I could stretch my tanks to an hour and a half to 2 hours. I discovered first a grappling hook, then the boats, then mortar shells, gun parts, just about everything you can imagine. Matter of fact, one of the mortar barges that I found still had the fuses from 1758 in the mortar shells. So to see that for the first time and recognize that you're the first person on the site, that's pretty outstanding. And each day, making recoveries, I would bring them over to the museum, and I really got a background in history. And when metal detectors came out in the 70s, I was ready. I mean, I knew early American history, I knew where they encamped. I had a background that was pretty solid. As a matter of fact, much of my stuff that I recovered in the 60s are in major museums today. Lake George, during the Revolution and French and Indian War, was our northern frontier. This area, history-wise, it's the best in the country as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you can go to any area, and you're going to find something. The area we're coming up on now is where I first found 17 ships from 1758. These were part of the Abercrombie expedition going to Ticonderoga. I was 17 years old, bought a scuba outfit. This was before programs and stuff, strapped it on, came out to the water. Didn't have enough money to buy a boat, so I had what we call an underwater trail extending from Ushers, and I got really good at extending my time with my air supply. I could get an hour and a half, 2 hours on a single tank of air. So I had this underwater trail that extended down through, and I would find old bottles, anchors, boats, and then all of a sudden one day I'm coming up through here and I see what looks like a graveyard underwater. Piles of rocks. Then I find an anchor, a grappling hook, and closer investigation, there's a bow and stern with each of these boats. And these rocks were ballast stones, and this group was intentionally sunk, whereas my mortar vessel, which was over here more, you could see was totally overloaded. And it had to have, I mean, that was obviously an accidental sinking. It was the first recovery of ships from the 1700s in Lake George. And interestingly, back then, nobody knew who owned the bottom of Lake George. And the state of New York, with this recovery, established themselves as owner of the bottom of the lake. Fortunately, all the stuff I recovered were kind of before.
For more than 40 years, Bob has continued to treasure hunt the upper New York State area because of its rich history and prize artifacts.
We've got great French and Indian War history. We've got great Revolutionary War history. You had Indians in this country. I mean, you had, the 7 great nations here. I mean, you had the Mohawks, which were one of the fiercest tribes all along the Mohawk River. You can go to almost any intersection with a major body of water. You will have had an encampment area of Native American Indians on that piece of land. Any time that you're metal detecting on sites like this, you're going to find things linked to the Indians. You're going to find bell taxes, trade items. There's so much in the ground that you find something else. I mean, the history is fabulous. I mean, James Fenimore Cooper and the last Mohegans, I mean, that was this area. The history's all around you. Yeah, this is one of my favorite pieces. This is a British belt axe, a British trade axe given to the Indians to help them with their effort in parting hair again. This is one of the items that typically missed by many year hunters. They find something like this, they just think it's a piece of junk iron. Turns out that this item is a blacksmith's hammer. Very collectible, typically a couple $100 item. Not a smart move to leave this behind. This is a French pinfire pistol. This is a common of the half a dozen pistols, rare pistols I've found around fallen barns. This was actually a common Civil War piece. This was a Confederate pistol made by the French for them. It was quite common to dispose of items in a barn.
When we return, Bob Lavoy will take us out to hunt for coins and Revolutionary War musket balls. Don't go away.
In 1960, I was the first to recover ships in this lake from the 1700s scuba diving. This is Lake George, the premier lake in the country. I retired in '96 to come back to treasure hunting full time. The house behind me, you could say, treasure built, and we're here every weekend. I do this because I love it. It's part of my life. I'm wealthier now. And my wealth is not just in the gold and silver I found. Just so many things about this hobby. The people, the recoveries. It's fantastic. A bad day metal detecting is better than a good day in the office. And there's no bad days.
About 6.5 inches. That's the best signal I've had for today. Oh. Oop. 1772. Doesn't get much better than that.
I don't know that there's too many ways that you can interact with history like this. I mean, you're really on top of the footprints of the past. I mean, to go out there, dig down and flip something up that's been down there for 200 years, that's pretty impressive. You know, when you get to my level in this game, and I think I've recovered 500 rings, thousands of coins, relics that you can see. It's very enjoyable, and it's so inexpensive. Doesn't get better than that.
Yeah, this tree over here is about 300 years old. The diameter, 4-foot diameter, well over 300. I would say great spot, undisturbed ground, and I got a target right here. That's a strong signal, reading about 60. That's a nice sound. Pocket probe. Here we go. We've got a musket ball here. This is the large size, 69 caliber, British. So the British were here. Interesting story about these. The British fired a single musket ball, but typically the Americans fired two. One large, one small, called buck and ball. The main ball would go straight, the small one would go anyplace. And for this, the British considered them unsportsmanlike. Not bad. So we should be able to find some colonials in here, some coins.
This is an 1898 bottle of liquor with a steel still intact. This is one of these interesting items you find while metal detecting a junk site. Very valuable. Just a super item. This is a Buck Rogers solar pistol from the 20s. Everybody needs one. It's very collectible. This thing in this condition is worth about $100. So when you find one, put it in your bag, take it home, put a little extend on it to preserve it, and away you go to eBay. This is an 1860 U.S. belt plate. This is an exceptional item that you can find in parks today. This is what they call a bear paw belt plate. If you look at the reverse on this, you'll notice the two bear paws. Bear paw belt plate with the back intact like this. That's $500 or $600 item. Frustration is never, and never will be in my vocabulary. What's to get frustrated about? I think I'm on top of the world. I haven't worked since 1996. Frustration? None. Zero. You know, that game of work was necessary at that point. I left that to devote all my energy to metal detecting and just doing what I want to do. And I know I'm doing it. I recommend starting this out as a hobby and expanding.
When we return, Bob will share about finding his cache of gold coins, and he'll give some secret tips on how to find your own treasure. Welcome back to Treasure Hunting America. When Bob Lavoy started getting peculiar emails hinting at hidden caches of gold coins, Bob decided to investigate. His treasure hunting skills and hunches paid off big time by locating not just one cache, but a whole collection of caches on one piece of property.
I had 50 or 60 emails. I get the permission on the property and the kinds of things. And he did contradict himself in several areas. The site was particularly difficult to hunt. It was mountainous. The person sent to everybody that maybe had a website or was known in the metal detecting community. And a lot of them disregarded, thinking it was some bogus thing or maybe they're going to send money. But I saw elements in that looked real. And I did a little investigating. And I said, you know, this is worth a shot. I got the necessary permission. I went to the site. Bang. Right off the rip, I pulled up 18 $50 gold pieces. Then I went back and I recovered another 13 in a 5-ounce bar. We hit the mother lode. And we're not done. There's 6 more locations. This is a sampling of some of the 32 gold pieces that I picked up in my Catskill gold cache. These were 32 $50 gold pieces. And then you'll see in this collection also there's a number of 1715 pieces. I've actually, I think my oldest gold piece was 400 AD, which wasn't too bad.
In the last few years, the world of relic hunters has changed dramatically when it comes to selling their finds, all due to the magic of eBay. Bob has capitalized on this new technology and done very well, not only selling his items, but those of his friends too.
Now, we used to sell to dealers and things like that at 50%. Now we're getting 150%. I had one customer, coincidentally, he was selling some coins that he recovered. And I says, you know, why don't you give me a couple of those coins and do a little test run for you. The first coin I put on eBay went for $3,700. We had 28 coins, went for $16,000. I wanted to give you a couple of tricks for improving your treasure hunting ability. One of these is old maps. They're an invaluable asset to finding treasure. What we have down here is an 1777 map overlaid over aerial photography. This shows exactly where the Army was in 1777. This 12th Regiment area right up here, which turned out to be on farmland, we got permission to hunt, and we recovered over 100 regimental buttons in that area. You can get these maps any place. We had a computer specialist, though, using a Photoshop, overlay this 1777 map over aerial photography. Some of the other interesting things that you will see here is that the river has changed course. In 1777, the river in blue was way over to the right. So then you're going to find today much of what was the river is farmland and totally legal to hunt. Numerous times I've found in people's junk boxes some major items. This is an item right here. This was a Louisiana tongue and belt seal, Civil War. More importantly, a Confederate belt plate a person recovered. He only had one half of it. Came into my shop, and I asked him what he thought it was, and he said he thought it was a piece of furniture hardware. Well, it was a $7,000 Civil War belt plate. And I said he needed the other half. He went back, he recovered the other half of the plate, and found an additional plate. It was a great recovery. You can't have enough reference books. One of my favorites is Collector's Encyclopedia of the American Revolution. I mean, this little axe right here that I'm holding is a $400 axe, listed in the book. One of my favorites here, of course, is my belt axe, right here. In the book, this is $1,000 belt axe.
With such an amazing track record as a treasure hunter, Bob remains humble yet proud of his accomplishments. You might say he's at the top of his game.
Many people consider me an expert when I do now. Boy, I mean, that for me is a benefit. I mean, it's incredible. I think I'm on top of the world. It doesn't get better than this. If I was talking to God, I'd tell him I need about another 20 years.
When we return, we'll meet Greg Heath, who started metal detecting over 30 years ago, hunting for Civil War relics in Virginia. Welcome back to Treasure Hunting America. With a passion for Civil War history, Greg Heath began looking for artifacts over 30 years ago. His favorite places to hunt are farmers' fields that were once battlefields of the blue and the gray.
I grew up in Northern Virginia, in Fairfax County. I moved to Orange County in 1975. Orange County was a Battle of the Wilderness, Battle of Mine Run, numerous winter Confederate camps in that area. I've always been fascinated with the Civil War and the Civil War period. In school, I wouldn't do my homework, but I'd do an extra credit report on the Civil War to bring my grades up. You had Americans fighting Americans. Now, you know, you had the Yankees and the Confederates, but they were still all Americans, and they were fighting each other, you know, and literally brother against brother. And it's just, to me, just a fascinating period of history. It's just fun. You get out, great outdoors, all kinds of weather, all kinds of scenery. I guess it's the thrill of the chase. Whatever it is, it's down there. Yeah, it's probably a bullet. There it is. That was deep. That was a foot in the ground. It was just a whisper of sound to start with, and it wouldn't lock on the signal. It was jumping up and down on the meter. That bullet was a good 12 inches in the ground. If we hadn't had all that rain last week, this thing would never dig one that deep. This moist ground kind of helps the signal. Lee's army retreated through here, and they were in a pretty good hurry when they came through, and the Yankees came down behind them and they were trying to hop ahead of them to cut them off, which they ended up doing. A whole lot of them came through after the surrender, and they were together then, because we'll be finding northern items and southern items right alongside of them.
One of Greg's favorite Civil War relics is very special because it revealed a secret he wasn't expecting.
I found a locket ring in a Yankee camp in Fredericksburg. It's probably the most fascinating item I ever found. It's a gold-plated man's ring, has a little door on the front of it, and behind the door was a piece of beveled glass. And at the time I dug it, you really couldn't see anything behind the glass. Probably a week or so later, I was cleaning it with a wet Q-tip, and the water seeped in behind the glass, and it was just like a ghost just appearing. Oh man, it gives me chills to even think about it. It's just, to hold it in your hand and feel the emotions from that ring. A soldier lost it. It's a picture of his mother or his wife, girlfriend, whatever. It's just the most fascinating relic I've ever found.
Over the years, Greg has learned a very valuable lesson in treasure hunting.
In a place like this one, that's been hunted hard, you need to go slow. And if you think you're walking slow, go slower. It's real easy to pass over something. If you were looking for relics in this field, if you can envision painting this field with a 6-inch roller, and you got to roll that roller over top of a relic to find it. I'll be doing this for as long as I'm able. I know some relic hunters in their 60s and 70s, and they're still relic hunting. They're moving slow, but they're still relic hunting. Hopefully my grandchildren will take an interest in it, and when Grandpa gets too old to bend down and dig it up, they'll dig it for me. Whatever it is small.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Treasure Hunting America. Be with us next time as we explore more stories of everyday treasure hunters all across the country. Until next time, I'm Mark Hendricks. Happy hunting! Treasure Hunting America is sponsored by White's Electronics, manufacturers of the world's finest metal detectors. For over 50 years, White's has been building metal detectors in the USA for treasure hunters around the world. For more information, visit their website or call the number on your screen.